At the start of the film, we are introduced to Yosi, an avid traveler with a dream of exploring the Amazon rainforest. Before reaching the jungle, he visits a nearby area popular with tourists for camping. Here, he meets Marcus, another travel enthusiast, and the two quickly become close friends, bonding over their shared love of adventure. Marcus then introduces Yosi to his friend Kevin, who also enjoys exploring the woods. Their common interests make them an inseparable trio, and they spend several days camping together, enjoying each other's company. One day, while wandering alone in the city, Yosi encounters a mysterious man who surprisingly knows his name. The man asks, "Do you want to go to the Amazon jungle? I know you've been wanting to go, and I can help you." He also reveals that there is an Indian tribe living deep in the forest, a wild and isolated group of people that no one knows much about. Yosi, intrigued and excited by the possibility of meeting these wild people, becomes even more eager. The man offers to help him, and without hesitation, Yosi agrees to go, not questioning why the man wants to help. He convinces Marcus and Kevin to join him on this adventure. The next day, the three friends meet again. The man brings them a map of the forest and explains that it will take 3 to 4 days of hiking to reach the tribe's location. They will first travel by plane and then trek through the jungle. With all their gear packed, they set off on their journey. By morning, they arrive near the forest by plane, then spend the day hiking. They set up camp for the night and settle in to sleep. In the middle of the night, Yosi is startled awake by a loud scream. Marcus has been bitten by an insect. Though the bite isn't poisonous, it causes him some discomfort, but by morning, they continue their journey without any serious setbacks. After traveling the entire day, they reach a location where a heavy rainstorm begins. Despite the downpour, they push on, knowing that stopping could make them vulnerable to illness. Along the way, they come across a small village. The villagers, while not wild, warmly welcome the travelers, offering them food, drink, and a place to rest. Yosi and his friends learn that Cal visits the village frequently. The next day, they leave the village behind and continue on their trek. As they journey on, Cal hunts a monkey. Although hunting is illegal in this area, Cal proceeds with a laugh, and the others follow behind, uncertain and uneasy. That night, they set up camp once again and try to sleep, their minds uneasy about what lies ahead. The next morning, they had to continue their journey. This time, Marcus found it increasingly difficult to walk. When the pain in his legs became unbearable and his difficulty walking worsened, Cal removed his shoes and examined his injuries. Marcus' legs were severely hurt, and it would take about 4 days to heal. Cal suggested they set up camp and rest for those 4 days. However, Yosi and his companions were eager to see the savages. Yosi's friend, a photographer, needed to document their adventures for his journal and was unwilling to stop. So they decided to find another route. Yosi proposed building a boat to travel by water. This path, however, was dangerous due to the river's swift current. Despite the risk, they built a boat. They loaded their supplies into it and began their journey along the river, with Cal acting as their captain, since he knew the forest paths well. The journey was smooth at first, but soon the river's strong waves began to upset the boat's balance. Cal suggested they land, but Kevin insisted on continuing with the flow, perhaps unaware of the dangers ahead. A disagreement broke out between Cal and Kevin, and Yosi struggled to calm the situation. Ultimately, Yosi obeyed Cal's request and steered the boat to shore. They set up camp for the night, and Cal decided they would resume their journey the next day on foot, abandoning the idea of traveling by water. Yosi and Kevin, however, were reluctant to walk as they were struggling with the terrain. They preferred to continue by boat. After some discussion, Marcus decided to join Cal, trusting his survival skills. The group split into two. Cal showed them a map, pointing to a meeting point in the forest where they would reunite in 3 days. Yosi and Kevin would continue by boat, while Cal and Marcus would travel on foot. The journey began, and at first, the river seemed calm, but soon, a fierce storm hit. The waves grew so strong that it was hard to keep the boat steady. The boat was carried by the current, but just as it seemed they might lose control, a large rock stopped it from moving further. The boat was now stuck, and if they didn't act quickly, they could be in grave danger. Yosi panicked and couldn't make a decision. Kevin, determined to get to safety, said, "Listen, I'll jump and swim to the shore. I'll throw you the rope. Catch it and come to me." Yosi hesitated but eventually agreed. Kevin, with great effort, jumped into the river and swam to the shore. When he tried to throw the rope to Yosi, the current suddenly reversed, and Yosi was swept away, tumbling into the water and carried by the powerful flow. Kevin watched in horror, unable to believe what he was seeing. He tried to save Yosi, but there was nothing more he could do. Yosi was gone, and Kevin feared he would never see his friend again. After some time, Yosi finally reached the shore, carried by the flow of the water. He was so disoriented that he didn't know what to do next. When he looked towards the river, he saw that his bag was also being carried by the current. He grabbed it, pulled out the Bible, and began reading. Inside the bag, Cal had placed some survival pills to increase strength. Yosi took one and then set off on his journey alone into the forest, hoping to find his friend. After wandering in the forest for a long while and seeing no way out, Yosi took out the map Cal had given him. Following the directions, he resumed his journey. Along the way, he came across a fruit tree. Hungry, he tried to pick some fruit, but a snake that had been lying there bit him. Thankfully, the bite didn't cause much harm. The snake slithered closer, and without hesitation, Yosi grabbed a stone, killed it, and ate it. Exhausted, he decided to rest for the night. However, he woke up to hear a voice. Marcus's voice. When he opened his eyes, he saw Marcus standing there, but as soon as Yosi reached him, Marcus vanished. It dawned on him that the isolation was beginning to take its toll, and he was losing his sanity. That night, Yosi felt a wild animal nearby. Using his instincts, he lit a lighter, sprayed gas, and drove the animal away with fire before falling asleep. The next morning, he woke up with a severe headache. When he touched his head, he found blood. Realizing a worm had entered his skin, he managed to remove it, enduring intense pain in the process. Despite this, he pressed on with his journey. Not long after, he stumbled upon a place where a tribe had once lived, but they had abandoned it due to some danger. The area seemed like a good place to rest, so Yosi took a break there. However, when he removed his shoes, he discovered that blood was leaking from his feet. Despite the pain, he decided to rest overnight. The next morning, his determination grew stronger, and he set off again in search of a way out of the forest. Meanwhile, Kevin had washed up on the riverbank where the villagers rescued him. As he recovered, he met with an officer and asked for help in finding Yosi, who had been swept into the water. At the officer's request, a rescue plane was sent into the jungle. Yosi, now in the jungle for 14 days, was mentally and physically weakened. Hearing the plane overhead, he waved a red cloth, hoping to signal it, but the plane crew couldn't see or hear him. The plane later reported that Yosi was nowhere to be found. Heartbroken, Kevin begged the officer for more help. The officer, believing Yosi had likely died in the forest after being missing for 2 weeks, explained that anyone who didn't return within 5 days was usually considered dead. Yet Kevin refused to give up hope. He met a man familiar with the forest and set off again, determined to find Yosi, following the river back into the jungle. In the forest, we find Yosi, whose mental and physical condition have both deteriorated. His body is too weak to move forward, and he lies there, helpless. Suddenly, a wild woman appears, causing Yosi to panic. She too is startled by his presence, but despite their fear, her arrival proves to be a blessing for Yosi. He reassures her, telling her everything will be fine, and asks her to stay with him. He makes her lie down beside him. After some time, when Yosi opens his eyes, he realizes the woman is gone. In fact, she was just a figment of his imagination, a manifestation of his mental state. He then regains control over his mind and stumbles upon a tree covered in insects. In his delusion, he believes that if he allows the insects to bite him, it will give him the strength to survive. He strips off his clothes and clutches the tree, allowing the insects to crawl onto his body and bite him. Despite the pain, he runs to the river, hoping to rid himself of the insects. Once he reaches the river, he creates a sign with his name, hoping that if anyone comes looking for him, they'll know he's still alive. As he's thinking this, a turtle passes by. He quickly picks up a stone, preparing to kill it for food, but then he feels pity for the creature and decides not to harm it. Night falls, and Yosi realizes that he has no strength left to escape. No one has come for him, and he accepts the possibility that he may die here. In his despair, he falls asleep. The next day, something good happens. Kevin arrives at the riverbank. He sees Yosi's sign and knows he's close, but after a thorough search, Yosi is nowhere to be found. Disappointed, Kevin begins to turn back, believing Yosi has perished. As the boat's engine starts, the noise wakes Yosi. He desperately tries to call out, but his voice is drowned out by the sound of the waves in the boat. His last hope fades. His friend had been so close to saving him, yet it seemed luck was not on his side. Kevin, thinking he was leaving the forest for the last time, turned around, and then he sees Yosi. In shock, Kevin raises the alarm and tells the boat driver to turn the boat back. As the boat reaches the shore, Yosi runs to it, and the two embrace in an emotional reunion. Kevin is astonished that Yosi is still alive and thanks God. Together, they return to their village, where everyone is amazed. No one had ever survived more than 2 weeks in the Amazon, but Yosi had done it. The villagers thank him for his incredible survival. At the end of the story, we learn about Cal and Marcus. Cal, a criminal, had recruited Yosi, Kevin, and Marcus for his sinister purposes. While Kevin and Yosi were fortunate enough to make it back, Marcus, who had gone with Cal, was never found. The film concludes with a revelation that it was based on a true story, and Yosi's resilience served as an inspiration for the movie.